What's going on, everybody? Fantasy Football Guru. Good evening. Even though it's my birthday, we decided on our league's fantasy draft date, which I believe is the 25th. So, been getting really heavy in my preparation. I want to start making videos for position-wise, for draft preparation, and sharing my opinions with you guys out there. What I've broken down to is I took 15 quarterbacks. I have the top 5 overall, I think, for the year, top 5 underrated, top 5 overrated. I'm going to start with the overrated, obviously, and kind of give a little reason why I think that these quarterbacks are overrated. You don't have to take my advice. These are just my opinions off of schedule strength, acquisitions, losses, offensive lines, running games, coaches, changes, etc. So I've been doing this for a long time, so I like to think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And hopefully if you guys do take my advice, it works out. Just remember, you can never account for injuries. You never can predict those, and those don't come into factor when it comes to saying how good of a year someone's going to have. Somebody always could get injured. There's players like Michael Vick. I left Michael Vick off all of these lists because he's just such a huge question mark to me. I don't know if I would take him or not, depending upon what draft pick I had. And so I went with these guys on these lists. So top 5 overrated quarterbacks this year in fantasy football. Number 5, overrated, Peyton Manning. He's not that overrated, but he's still going to go high. He's Peyton Manning. People think Demaryius Thomas, Eric Decker, great receivers, and they are. I just think the outdoor, severe injury, different offensive line, shaky running game. I just don't think he's going to have the typical Peyton Manning season. So I wouldn't advise picking him early this year. I would try and snag him late if I could. Number 4, overrated quarterback, going to come as a shocker, in my opinion, Tony Romo. Des Bryant's question mark on the field, the loss of Lauren Robinson. For depth purposes, Jason Witten another year older. DeMarco Murray injury prone. Felix Jones injury prone. I just don't like Tony Romo at all this year. I think Miles Austin's great, but I wouldn't touch Tony Romo this year. I wouldn't waste an early pick on him. Ben Roethlisberger. Everybody's talking about they have no running game, or their running game is going to be down this year, so they're going to pass a lot, and they're, this, that, and the other. I'm just not a big fan. So I think he's getting picked really early, more early than usual in some drafts that I've seen and I've been in so far on ESPN and Yahoo Sports. So I just think he's a little bit overrated. Plus, he gets hurt. Even though he's a tough guy, he does get hurt a lot during the year, and he battles through injuries. Plays in a tough division with tough defenses, the Bengals, the Ravens, twice a year. So stay away from him if you can. A guy that's just, everybody's trying to go for this year's Cam Newton with this guy, Robert Griffin III. Just stay away from him. Mike Shanahan, his running plays, he's a suspect coach. The receiving core is suspect. The division is tough. He could end up being this year's Cam Newton, but for where he's being drafted, 3rd, I've seen him picked as high as 3rd round, some 4th round. The value you can get out of a receiver or running back at that position, or even at another quarterback, is far greater than Robert Griffin, I believe. My number 1 overrated quarterback is Jay Cutler. Don't believe the hype on Brandon Marshall. Good receiver. Johnny Knox, I think, is out for the year. I think he's going to be on the PUP list. I think the Bears are going to go super duper run heavy. They didn't invest in Michael Bush and Matt Forte for nothing. Aside from Brandon Marshall, Devin Hester is Earl Bennett, whatever. That receiving core to me is just And then when the wintertime comes, when your playoffs start, and it's in Chicago and it's windy and snowy, you don't want to be relying on Jay Cutler to carry you to the Super Bowl. Now I'm going to move on to my top 5 underrated quarterbacks. These guys, I think, are going to have statistically better years than they did last year. I think some of them may even surprise and be in that top 12 quarterback overall at the end of the year scoring. Number 5 is Josh Freeman. Added Vincent Jackson. Already had a decent core of weapons. I really do think that the Buccaneers are going to be a little bit more of an exciting team this year. I think they're going to go for the long ball a lot. I think Josh Freeman's going to rush at the goal line for 6 touchdowns, I think. And the league that I play in, that's a good thing. So I like Josh Freeman, big, strong, tough quarterback, finally has himself a super weapon in Vincent Jackson. I really think he's going to elevate his game, and I think he's going to be very, very underrated quarterback. I think you can get him in the late rounds and stash him away as your backup quarterback, and watch and hope he takes off like I think he's going to. Number 4, Jake Locker. The guy is just, he's Tim Tebow with an arm, basically. The guy came on the field for Tennessee last year. I think he had some great games statistically. I like Damian Williams. I'm a big Damian Williams supporter. Kenny Britt's on the fences, whatever the case may be with him. But Kendall Wright, I think Chris Johnson may be rebounding this year, may catch a lot of balls out of the backfield, catch a lot of balls. I just think he's very underrated. And again, later on in the late rounds, after you've secured a number 1 quarterback, he's a great stash away. This guy always has a great year, basically, in our league. He's always a guy that goes almost undrafted till the end, and I think he's just going to continue to have better and better seasons. Ryan Fitzpatrick for the Buffalo Bills. Stevie Johnson. I like the C.J. Spiller, Fred Jackson mixture in the backfield. I just think Buffalo, with the additions on defense, Mario Williams, I think Marcel Darius going to have a better year. I just think the defense that the Bills are put together are going to make for a better offensive season for Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think that the AFC East is a bit of a weaker division than most people are going to think this year. So I like Ryan Fitzpatrick as, again, a late round guy. And the next 2 guys can probably go mid-rounds, 5th, 6th maybe. But I think these two guys are going to put up huge numbers this year, huge numbers, and I think they'll both be playoff teams. My number 2 underrated quarterback is Joe, rhymes with my last name, Flacco, and I'm a big Torrey Smith fan. Anquan Bolden's a great slot receiver. I like Ed Dixon and Pitta, the tight ends, and Ray Rice, the little dump-off passes. I think Joe Flacco's in for a huge year offensively. And my number 1 underrated quarterback, I think the Falcons have the number 1 receiving core duo, Roddy White and Julio Jones. Tony Gonzalez, Tony G is always over the middle. Matt Ryan is going to have a huge year. Mark it down, write it down now. Matt Ryan, huge year, probably one of the top 5 fantasy quarterbacks scoring. Mark it down, and he will go after Tony Romo in our league, probably after Peyton Manning. Matt Ryan's going to have a phenomenal year. Turner a step older. Jacquez Rodgers, kind of like worked on 2.0. Matt Ryan going to have a big year. And my top 5, these are the top 5 quarterbacks. I think they're going to finish statistically. I think Matt Ryan will be up there, but these are the top 5 guys I think are going to be at quarterback. And some of them are no surprises, say what you will. Number 5, Matt Stafford. The guy just had weapons upon weapons upon weapons. The 2 tight ends, Pettigrew is a beast. Titus Young is coming into his own. Of course, Megatron. They just had a plethora of receivers. Nate Burleson in the slot. Just a good core. And that team is great. That Lions team is, for the next couple of years, they're like the Washington Nationals, I think, of the NFL, basically. So Matt Stafford's going to have a monster year as long as he stays healthy, and so does Megatron. And their backfield, I think LaShore's healthy, Kevin Smith, and Javid Best. Some sort of mixture of that running back core will be decent. Number 4, it's going to shock some people, I know, but strength of schedule, the fact that this guy just reminds me of Dan Marino, that he is this generation's Dan Marino, and that's Phillip Rivers. I know he lost Vincent Jackson, oh no, but guess what? He's got Antonio Gates. He's got Malcolm Floyd, who I've always been saying, I always tell everybody in my opinion, he's a legitimate threat. He's a number 1 potential receiver. I think that if you sleep on Robert Meacham, you're crazy. Great receiver, great addition to that core. And I think the big key in that receiving core is Vincent Brown. I think Vincent Brown is the next Vincent Jackson. So Phillip Rivers is going to put up a tremendous amount of numbers this year. They're going to be playing from behind a lot. And, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. So I look for Philip Rivers to have maybe 40-plus touchdowns this year. Mark it down. Tom Brady's my number 3 quarterback just because, it's Tom Brady. You got the Gronkowski show. Tom Brady's just dink and dunk Wes Welker all day. The guy's going to put up freaking numbers no matter what you say. Tom Brady is always going to have a good year, in my opinion. And again, another team with a defense that I think they're going to be playing catch up or keep up on the scoreboard wise because their defense is older. They did draft some young guys, but their defense just doesn't intimidate anybody, I don't think, passing the ball. So Tom Brady, I think, is going to throw for a lot of touchdowns. Number 2, and he's only number 2 because of Sean Payton not being there on the sideline, but Drew Brees is going to have a hell of a year again, as usual. I don't think he's going to have the kind of year he did last year, but it's Drew Brees. It's an indoor stadium they play in. I think they have something to prove with the whole bounty scandal and Sean Payton being suspended. I think they have a chip on their shoulder, and I think Drew Brees is going to sling it this year. I don't think he's going to break his own record from last year, but definitely going to have a phenomenal season. And the number 1 fantasy quarterback for me, hands down, I believe Randall Cobb will step up this season and become a huge threat for the Green Bay Packers, adding to Jermichael Finley, Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, usual suspects, and Aaron Rodgers will, of course, be the number 1 fantasy football quarterback. The guy is just phenomenal. So he should be the first quarterback picked in every league. And, those are my overrated, underrated, and top 5 all-around quarterbacks for this year. Please take my advice into consideration. If you have any questions, feel free to inbox me, leave a comment, on the video. My Facebook is on my page. Please subscribe, like this, and pass it along. The next video I'll be doing will probably be sometime during this week or next, and that'll be running back. So hope you guys took some of that information, jotted it down somewhere, and get ready for your fantasy football drafts. I'll see you guys around. Take care. Guru is out. Peace.